Algebra 2 Honors Lesson 2-2, Linear Equations. Here are the objectives. Alright, now slope. Alright, first of all, the letter M is used to represent the slope. Okay, now the slope is the vertical change, alright, so how much the line moves up or down, alright, divided by the horizontal change, how much the line runs to the right. Okay, just keep in mind that the way I'm going to teach you how to find the slope, we usually run to the right, right? So we're always going to run to the right. Okay, now there are 4 types of slope. Okay, there's positive slope and negative slope. Now, how do you know if it's positive slope? So read the line from left to right, the same way we kind of read a book from left to right. So going from left to right here, right, the line goes up, so it's positive. Over here, going from left to right, the line goes down, so it's negative. Alright, going from left to right here, this is just a flat horizontal line, so there's no change at all. So M, alright, is equal to 0. Alright, now this is a vertical line. Alright, when it's a vertical line, alright, it's considered no slope, or some books call it undefined. Alright, or undefined. Alright, now students, alright, mix these up a lot. Alright, so there's no slope or undefined. Now students mix these two up a lot, so here's an easy way to remember. Alright, this horizontal line, you can make a Z for 0 slope. Alright, for this vertical line, you can make an N for no slope. Okay? Now, to find the slope of the line, alright, when it's graphed, alright, what you have to do is you have to find 2 points on the line, alright, that meet at a corner of a graph. Okay? It's important that it meets at a corner because then we know the precise coordinates of the point. For example, this point right here, we know it's at -4 and 5. Alright? This point right here, we know the coordinates are -8 and 8. Right? If let's say we chose this point right here, alright, we know this is -5, but then I mean, is this 6.5, 6 and 5/8? What is it? We don't. This is an estimate. We don't know an exact point right here. It's kind of in the middle. That's why we have to find points that are on a corner, right, of a graph. Now to find the slope, right, basically you're moving from left to right. Alright, and so how do we go from this point to this point? Well, you go down 3, so that's -3, and then we're gonna run 1, 2, 3, 4 times to the right. So M is gonna equal, how much was our rise or run? Well, when we went down 3, right, and then we run 4 times to the right. Alright, your run is always in the denominator. Okay, or you can also write it this way, with a negative in front of the fraction. Alright, these two mean the same thing. Okay, let's graph another one. So we have, alright, so let's find a point. There's a point here. There's another point right here at a corner. Alright, so how to go from this point to this point? Because remember, I always move from left to right. Well, we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So up 5. We're going to run 1 time. So our M, our slope, is 5/1. Okay? Let's see. Let's do another one right here. Let's say, okay, so let's find 2 points. Well, there's a point right here. There's a point right here. So how do we move from this point to this point? Well, we're going to go down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's -4. And we're going to run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our slope is going to be -4/5. Right? So that's how you find the slope if they give you a line on a graph. Now, how do you find the slope if they give you 2 points? Okay, now you can memorize this formula, right, and just plug, right, the numbers into the formula, or what I like to teach is the stack and subtract method. Okay, So basically, the y sub 2, y sub 1, x sub 2, x sub 1, basically these represent these numbers here. This is the first point, so this would be x sub 1, y sub 1, and this would be x sub 2, y sub 2. And you can take these numbers and just plug it in the formula. But an easier way that I like to teach is to just take, alright, the first point, stack it underneath the second point. So this, I call this the stack and subtract method. Right? So take the first point, put it underneath the second point, and then basically, instead of having to memorize this formula, all you need to remember is start with the y's, and I'm going to take the top minus the bottom. So negative 3 minus 1 over, alright, now go to the x's, top minus the bottom, 4 minus negative 2. Alright, so two negatives, we know become positive. Then simplify, so we're going to get negative 4 at the top. On the bottom we're going to get 6. Reduce this, so we're getting negative 2 over 3. So that's our slope. Right? So instead of having to remember this formula, just use the stack and subtract method. Take the first point, stack it underneath the second. Alright, start with the y's, take the top minus the bottom, top minus the bottom. Right? Let's do another example. So let's take a look at this one right here. So I'm going to take the first point, put it underneath the second point. So m is going to equal, start with the y's. Alright, start with the y values first. Take the top minus the bottom. So 5. Then put a minus sign because that's in the equation. And then whatever the bottom numbers. Now it's a negative 3. Okay. Now take the top, negative 1, minus, what's the bottom? Negative 4. Alright. To simplify, well, we know that these minus signs next to each other become positives. So m is going to equal, 5 plus 3, 8, negative 1 plus 4, 3. Alright, so m is 8 over 3. Okay? Alright, let's take a look at this one right here. So let's stack and subtract. So negative 2, negative 1. Alright, so m is going to equal to, start with the y's, negative 1 minus negative 1 over negative 4 minus negative 2. Alright, two negatives next to each other become positive. Alright, so negative 1 plus 1, that's going to give us a 0 at the top, and then negative 2 at the bottom. So 0 divided by negative 2, so m equals 0. Alright, so this is 0 slope. Right? We have 0 at the top, alright, and just any number at the bottom, alright, other than 0. This is 0 slope. Okay? Over here, right? Let's stack and subtract. So we have 2 and negative 1. Alright, so start with the y's, negative 3 minus negative 1 over 2 minus 2. Two negatives next to each other are going to become positive. So we're going to end up with negative 2 over 0. Now, if you have 0 on the bottom, alright, that's a different story. Remember, we can't divide by 0 in math. So if you have 0 at the bottom, that means that, alright, this is no slope, alright, or undefined. Or you could write undefined. Okay. Alright, so 0 on top equals 0. 0 in the denominator, that's no slope. Now, how to find the slope? Alright, if you have a linear equation, okay. Now, first of all, slope-intercept form. Alright, slope-intercept form. I know you've all heard and seen before. Alright, y is equal to mx plus b. The slope, alright, is the number in front of x. Alright, once again, the slope is the number in front of x. Alright, for example, if you have y is equal to 2x minus 8, the slope in this case, m would equal 2, because it's the number in front of x. Right? But you have to make sure that y is by itself and positive. Right? So the key to finding the slope when you have an equation, get y by itself and positive, right? And put it in slope-intercept form, and the number in front of x, that's the slope. Okay? So for example here, number 1, right, y is by itself and positive, so it's okay to find the slope now. So m, we know, right, is the number in front of x, so that's -4. Alright, example 3 here, right, y is by itself and positive, so m is going to equal, what's the number in front of x? -2. Alright, now this problem right here, y isn't by itself and positive yet, so you're going to have to get y by itself, alright, and positive before you could find m. Okay, so let's do that. So we have 3x minus 2y is equal to 12. So we're going to minus 3x on both sides because we're trying to get y by itself. So we get -2y is equal to -3x plus 12. Divide everything by -2. So y is going to equal 3/2 x. If it doesn't divide evenly, then just leave it a fraction. Alright, minus 6. So now we know m is 3/2. Y is by itself and positive. We can find the slope. It's 3/2. Okay? So just make sure to get y by itself and positive. Okay? Finding the x-intercept and y-intercepts. Okay? X-intercept is where the line crosses the x-axis. Alright? At the x-intercept, y is equal to 0. The y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. Alright? At the y-intercept, x is equal to 0. Okay? So let's pull up a, let's make a quick graph. Let's say, alright, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright. So for this graph right here, alright, since the line crosses, alright, or touches the y-axis right here, so the y-intercept for this line, alright, will be equal to 3, and the x-intercept, alright, this is the x-axis, alright, so the x-intercept, alright, for this line would equal 5. Alright. Now the key things that you need to remember, alright, at the x-intercept, y is always 0. So this coordinate here, if you think about it, this is 5 and 0. Alright. The y-intercept here, the coordinate is going to be what? 0 and 3. Okay? So the main thing to remember, alright, at the x-intercept, alright, at the x-intercept, the other letter is always equal to 0. The other letter is y. At the y-intercept, what's the other letter? It's x, so that's equal to 0. Right. So down here, for example 1, if they ask you to find the y-intercept, right, if you want to find the y-intercept, you know that x is going to equal 0. So plug 0 in for x, so you get y is equal to -4 times 0 plus 8. So then you're going to know that y is going to be equal to 8. So you know the y-intercept, alright, is going to equal, alright, the y-intercept is going to equal 8, and the coordinates are 0 and 8. Okay? Let's say for this example right here, you want to find the x-intercept. Well, for the x-intercept, we know y is equal to 0. Okay? So plug 0 in for y, so it'll be 0 is equal to 3x minus 7. Alright, get x by itself, so add 7. Alright, you get 7 is equal to 3x. Divide by 3. Alright, so x is going to equal 7/3. So the x-intercept is 7/3. Alright, I know that's an improper fraction. You could change it to a mixed number later. Okay, so x is equal to 7/3. So the coordinates would be 7/3 and 0. Okay? Parallel and perpendicular slopes. Okay, now slopes of parallel lines. Alright, now we all know what parallel lines are from geometry. Parallel lines are two lines that if we go on forever, they're never going to touch. Right? These two, for example, would be parallel lines. Just imagine them going on forever. Alright, they're never going to touch. Alright, now parallel lines, you have to remember, alright, have the same slope. They have the same slope. Alright, so the slopes are the same. Alright, if the lines are parallel. Alright, so let's say the slope of this first line is, -2. The slope of this second line, is also -2. Okay. Now slopes of perpendicular lines, alright, slopes of perpendicular lines, alright, the products of their slope, alright, have to multiply together to equal -1. Alright, so what I like to say is perpendicular lines, their slopes are opposite reciprocals. Alright, opposite reciprocals. Okay, so for example, let's say the slope of the first line is 3/5. The slope of the line perpendicular, alright, to this line, okay, is going to be the opposite, so the opposite positive is negative, and then reciprocal, so you have to flip this, 5/3. And you notice if you multiply 3 and 5 and -5 and 3, alright, everything's going to cross cancel, and you're going to end up with -1, okay, which was in the definition. Alright, so over here, let's say the slope of the first line is -3/2. The opposite reciprocal would be positive 2/3. Okay, now if 5 is the whole number, remember you put a 1 underneath it, so the opposite reciprocal would be -1/5. Okay. Alright, finding the equation of a line in standard and point slope form. Alright, first of all, you need to know what standard form is. Basically, standard form is, for example, 3x minus 2y is equal to 4. Okay, this is considered standard form. When the x's and the y's are together, right, on one side of the equal sign, right here, there are no fractions. Okay, there are no fractions. Alright, and x and y obviously are not both 0. Okay, one of them might be 0, but not both of them. Okay, and this is point slope form right here, where you have y minus y1 is equal to m times the quantity of x minus x1. Alright, and x1 and y1 is just a given point, alright, on the line. So let's do some examples. Alright, so right here they want you to write an equation given the slope and a point. Okay, so they give you the slope, alright, and a point. So write in standard form, alright, an equation of the line with slope -1/2 through the point 8 and -1. So since we have the slope and a point, we're going to use point slope form. Alright, point slope form, alright, remember y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x sub 1. Okay, so this is going to be our x sub 1 and y sub 1, so we're just going to plug it in this formula right here. So we're going to get y minus -1 is equal to, what was our slope? -1/2 times x minus 8. Alright, so the first thing, alright, let's change these two negatives here to become positive. Alright, because two negatives next to each other become positive. Now we want to get rid of the fraction, so we're going to multiply both sides by 2. Alright, so put this in parentheses. Alright, and put a 2 there. It's important to put the parentheses so that you remember, alright, to distribute the 2 to both. Okay, because that's a common mistake. So we're going to distribute here. So you get 2y plus 2 is going to equal, alright, these cancel, the 2's. Alright, so you're left with -1. So we're going to distribute the -1 now. So you get negative x, alright, plus 8. And now remember, we need to put it in standard form. So we need to get the x's and the y's together on one side, alright, and the numbers on the other side. So we're going to add x over here, add x over here, minus 2 here, minus 2 here. So this will cancel. We're left with x plus 2y. This cancels, is equal to 6. So now the equation is in standard form. X and y is together. We don't have any fractions. Okay, and x is positive. There we go. Alright, so let's do another example real quick. Let's do example B right here. So we're going to plug everything in point slope again. Alright, so remember point slope is y minus y sub 1 is equal to m times the quantity x minus x sub 1. So this is our x sub 1 and y sub 1. We're just going to plug it in here and work it out. So we're going to get y minus 6 is equal to 5 over 6 times x minus 5. Right? We don't have to change any signs in this case. So let's get rid of the fraction. So we're going to multiply both sides by 6. Alright, so let's put this in parentheses right here. So that we know we need to distribute to both. So we get 6y minus 36. These cancel. Alright, remember when they cancel, they really become 1s. Alright, so 1 times 5 is 5. Then we're distributing the 5. Alright, so it's gonna equal 5 times x is 5x. 5 times negative 5 is negative 25. Alright, now what I like to do here is, since at the end in standard form x is positive, since x is positive right here, I'm gonna leave x here, and I'm gonna bring the y over to this side. So I'm gonna minus 6y this time. Alright, and then I'm gonna add that 25 over here. Alright, so this will eliminate the y here. Alright, this is going to give us negative 11 is equal to, alright, the 5x stays positive. This cancels, and we're left with minus 6y. Alright, it's less work now because we don't really have to do anything else. X is positive, x and y is together. Alright, there are no fractions. Okay, and the numbers on the other side of the equal sign. So there you go. So whenever x is positive, if it's positive, just leave it where it's at. Okay. Okay, now they want us to write in point slope form, okay, the equation of a line through 1 and 5 and 4 and negative 1. Well, for point slope form, right, we need to know a point. Right? Well, we have 2 here, so we know a point, but we need to know the slope. Right? We don't know the slope, so we need to find the slope first. So to find the slope, right, I'm going to use the stack and subtract method that we talked about earlier. Alright, I'm going to take the first point, stack underneath the second. Alright, start with the y's, stack and subtract. So top, negative 1, minus bottom, 5, divided by the x values, top number, 4, minus the bottom, 1. And what do we get? Negative 6 over 3, which equals negative 2. Alright, so we know what m is now. M is negative 2. Alright, once we know m, alright, we could plug it in point slope. Now for point slope, you can use either one of these points. Alright, now remember point slope, y minus y1 is equal to m times the quantity x minus x sub 1. Alright, so you could use either one of these points. Alright, let's say I use this point right here. So this will be my x1, y1. I'm just going to plug it in here. So we're going to get y minus 5. Alright, is equal to m, we know what m is now, negative 2 times x minus 1, and then you're done. That's it. Alright, you could use the other point also too. Alright, if you use this point, the equation would have looked like this. It would have been y minus negative 1, right, is equal to negative 2, our slope, times x minus 4. And then just remember to change the signs here. Since you have two negatives, make it positive. So this would be y plus 1. Okay? So either one of these equations would be correct. Okay? Alright, writing the equation of a line perpendicular to another line. So we've got this equation right here. Alright, and the slope is 3 over 4. Okay? Now, we want to find the equation of a line perpendicular to this line, right, and going through this point. Okay? Now, if it's going to be perpendicular, alright, m, alright, it's going to have to be the opposite reciprocal. So it's going to have to be negative 4 over 3. So use this slope now, because we want it to be perpendicular, and this point, and plug it in point slope. So we're going to have y minus 4 is equal to negative 4 over 3 times x minus 0. Alright, so we're going to multiply both sides now by 3. to get rid of the fraction. So we're going to get 3y minus 12 is going to be equal to, alright, x minus 0 is just x, so we're going to get negative 4x. Now, since x is negative, let's move it to the other side, right? So we're going to add 4x here. We're going to add 4x to the other side. And we're going to add 12 here to move 12 to the right side. This will eliminate, what are we left with? 4x plus 3y is equal to 12. So this equation, alright, this is the equation of a line perpendicular to this line, okay? And if you want to put it in slope-intercept form, alright, you would just do some additional work. Right, you get 3y is equal to negative 4x, right, plus 12, divide everything by 3. So y would equal negative 4 over 3x plus 4. Okay, so depending on if they want the answer in standard form or in slope-intercept form, right, just do some additional work if they want it in slope-intercept form. Okay.